So allow me to share the traditional fermented foods, a source of potential probiotics and health benefits. Indonesian traditional fermented foods mostly involving lactic acid bacteria and mostly are fermented spontaneously. Unless tempe, they include mold as active microbes. And some also has mixed cultures, yeah, and may involve yeast. But then fermented food comprise about 1/3 of the worldwide consumption of food and 20 to 40% by weight in individual diets. The classification of fermented foods could be as follow. Eggs. In Indonesia, we understand we have salted egg or telur asin. And then dairy products, the traditional fermented foods in Indonesia, representing by dadi of West Sumatra. And then fish product, we have some fish, fermented fish like peda, and then a lot of fruits and vegetables, fermented fruits and vegetables, such as pickles or achar, and then sawi asin, sayur asin, or sauerkrauts. And then legumes for sure, such as tempe. And some meat products also, like in Bali, we have urutan, and then starch crop, yeah, like tape, and some miscellaneous products. Fermentation enhances or alters nutritive and health modulating properties of food constituents. The microbes in fermented foods introduce new compounds to the foods that are delivered to the gut. Many of the species of microbes involved in fermented foods are phylogenetically related to probiotics. And fermented foods can be an important dietary source of live microbes. Microbes in fermented foods may contribute to human health in a manner similar to probiotics. We can see here that the natural fermentation, yeah, as indigenous microbes in the food product, serve as starter cultures, could be aerobic or anaerobic, and then fermenting the food, and they release the bioactive compounds from the food constituents. Let me explain about the fermented vegetable, the importance of fermented vegetables. Enrichment of food substrate biologically with vitamins and other nutrients. We understand that most of vitamins in fruits and veggies are really heat sensitive. But then by fermenting them, we can conserve, yeah, we can still keep the vitamins, important vitamins in the fruits and vegetables when we consume it. Enrichment of human diet through development of a wide diversity of flavors, aroma, and textures. This is the main, actually, earlier we understand that fermentation is only for enhancing flavor, aroma, and texture. But now we understand more that lots of important to human health. Decreased digestibility of vegetable, and then preservation, because we can extend the shelf life, and then preservation of substantial amounts of vegetables. Detox, reduce anti-nutritional properties of vegetables during the fermentation process. We understand that some lactic acid bacteria can degrade phytate, so can release the minerals content in the, and increase the bioavailability of mineral. And then for sure, decrease cooking times and fuel requirement, and preserve heat-sensitive nutrients and enzymes that we need. This is the, we can summarize like this, that fermentation could be natural spontaneous, could be backsloping, could be using starter cultures, and then involving enzymes from the organisms, the microbes, and then could be aerob, anaerob, and then producing, developing flavor, and then reduce the anti-nutritive, yeah, and then producing bioactive compounds such as peptides, EPS, exopolysaccharides, phenolics, neurotransmitters, vitamins, and producing lactate, ethanol, or carbon dioxide. The question is, Why fermented foods as source of potential probiotic? We understand that mostly involving lactic acid bacteria and mostly lowering the pH of the food. So we can taste it as a sour taste. Hence, it will inhibit the growth of pathogenic microbes. The viable microbes consumes also in fermented foods. And a healthy human microbiome, the more diverse microbes, the better in our gut. And then also producing metabolite product in the form of bioactive compound. We can see here how many viable counts consumed when we eat or drink fermented foods. In yogurt, it's about 10 to the power 10, could be 10 to the power 8 to 10. And some other things. In kimchi also, around 4 to 8. We can see here that we can utilize the biodiversity of natural ecosystem and then involving the microbes into fermentation and preserving and producing bioactive compounds. The potential probiotics from various traditional fermented foods in Indonesia could be derived from tempe, dari, tape, tauco acar sayur asin, here sayur asin, and tempoyak. It's a durian-made fermented food. This is ikan pedar. This is pedar, and this is mandai. This is tape. Mandai is fermented jackfruit, young jackfruit from Kalimantan. So the source could be fermented dairy food, and then observe the lactic acid bacteria screening to find out the probiotic bacteria meet the probiotic properties, and then genetic proteolytic gene preservation could be also done, and then evaluate the health properties by clinical trial based on good clinical practice. And then the food technologists will produce superfood production. Bill Gates, in earlier of October 2019, his address at Cambridge University expressed that his belief understanding the role of gut microbiota in health and disease will help solve some of the current diseases we are facing. So if we observe our human body, only 10% of the cells are really human. All are alien who reside in our human body, about 90%. So that means we have to be good to them, to manage them, to help us in our human health. About more than 100 species in the mouth, and then 1,000 species in the skin, and for 500 to 1,000 species in the gut. And we understand that gut is a complex organ. 60 to 70% of immune cells are originated in the gut, and then also 100,000 million neurons, and then surface about 1 tennis court, and resided by 100 trillion bacteria as gut microbiota. So this large surface needs to be defended against pathogens, toxins, and allergens. So then we have to feed the gut microbiota, so then they help us instead of giving detrimental effect. The probiotic bacteria could be screened, so that then they can colonize in the gut, produce metabolic compounds such as lactic acid, and then this is a kind of antibiotic, actually bacteriocin, peptide, and then use nutrients and enhance host immune response. Then protect against pathogenic bacteria. The basic characteristic of selection of probiotic strains, adherence to the cell, intestinal cell, and then could be human or fermented food origin, acid and bile stability, persistent in human intestinal tract, and then clinically validated and documented health effect, and an antagonism against enteric pathogens, susceptibility should be susceptible to antibiotics, and so that there is no antibiotic resistance and transfer gene, and then safety in food and clinical use. Regulate the microbiome for improved health. Yeah, so the targeted probiotics and prebiotics, yeah, improve digestive health, less infection, disease, constipation, diarrhea, and reduce metabolic disorder, less obesity, diabetes, and improve immune modulation, reduction, infection and inflammation, and neurological improvement, improve function, new nerve cell growth, and less anxiety. So then this is one case about daddy, yeah, the probiotic originated from daddy. They are collecting the buffalo milk is quote unquote in unhygienic condition. Yeah? We don't know whether the hand of the farmer is really clean or not, and it's bamboo tube used several times, and then just pour in bamboo tube, and then kept with banana leaves, and then just fermented one night. But then the inspiration is there is very rare product failure, and then the old generation believe that daddy has beneficial effect to human health. So there must be something, powerful of indigenous lactic acid bacteria in daddy. So then it is a potential probiotic as well. By definition, what health organization live microorganisms which, when administered in adequate amount, confer a health benefit on the host. They survive stomach acid and bile and establish residence in the intestine and impart health benefits. See, if we have protein-rich fermented foods such as milk or fish, yeah, then we involve the microbes, could be lactic acid bacteria, and then they produce enzyme, the lactic acid bacteria or the microbe involved, and then they will produce peptide. Yeah, the enzyme even can have anti-thrombotic. This is a case of natto from Japan. Yeah, they have anti-thrombotic properties, and then the peptide could act as ACE inhibitory, antimicrobial, as bactericide, and then antioxidant, anti-cancer, and then cholesterol lowering, even immunomodulatory. So bioactive compounds in tempeh for treatment of obesity also been reported that isoflavones, proteins, and peptide play important role. This is the reverse of food engineering, the overview of reverse food engineering. Exploit fermented dairy foods as bioreservoirs of microbes producing bioactive peptide and pro-health molecules, and perform multidisciplinary analysis to improve content of bioactive peptides and healthy microbiome in hyperfood. The position of fermented dairy food in food consumption and strategies for knowledge-driven optimization of a novel generation of functional food called Hyperfood 2.0 can be seen here. Yeah, then should be safety guarantee safe, and then accepted the sensory properties and high nutritional value, probiotics and bioactive peptides, and rich and poor in allergen. So then producing Hyperfood 2.0. Now, talking about probiotics, the physiological effects of probiotic is really dose dependent and then strain dependent. There is no generic probiotic. Time dependent, even effectiveness increased with early treatment, and ailment dependent with significant benefit in people with viral gastroenteritis. If we compare fermented food versus probiotics. Probiotic must contain live microbes, must be tested and shown to have health benefit, must deliver level of live microbes shown to confer benefits. And then fermented food made by live microbes might not survive into the food you consume, yeah, post-fermentation process. And may not have been tested for health benefits beyond basic nutrition value. Likely healthy dietary components, but may not meet the bar to be called a probiotic. While probiotic fermented food must contain live microbes, must be tested and shown to have health benefit, the health benefit must result as at least in part from the live microbes present, and the health benefit must go beyond meeting basic micro and macronutrient nutritional needs and must deliver level of live microbes shown to confer benefit. This is the benefits of fermented foods. Increase variety of nutritious foods to our diets. And then food ingredients to improve flavor. Yogurt in curry, soy sauce in stir-fried dishes, and cheese in variety of dishes. Improve nutritional quality. We understand, and tape improve protein quality in cassava. Increase the essential amino acid. And then presence of yeast, increase vitamin B, improve anti-nutritive factors such as phytate and then glucosinolate and lectin, and increase bioavailability of minerals, yeah, and then preservation, extend shelf life, inhibit pathogenic and spoilage microbes, health benefits improvement, probiotics, presence of enzyme, for example, ACE inhibitory, and then improve digestibility. Microbes involve help to break down into smaller molecules. So we let the microbes to work in breaking down the macronutrient into small molecules and easily digested. Detox, remove cyanogenic glycoside in cassava, yeah. Bitter cassava, a lot of cyanide content. And then produce vitamin, yeah, yogurt. We understand that the folate in milk will be destroyed by heat treatment, but lactic acid bacteria can produce folic acid. Improve bioavailability of mineral because the mineral mostly chelate to phytate. This is individual consumption of some fermented foods, average percent per year. Look to tempeh. May I recommend fermented foods contribute to diversity of gut microbiota and physiological function. Let us follow India and Canada to include fermented foods in Indonesian food guide. You see it here that only India involving fermented food in the food guide. And the proposed food guide currently focused on the origin form of the food source, yeah, harmonization with economic reality related to industrial sector. But I think approach on type of product being consumed create 3 different categories. Natural foods without any type of processing, manufacturing food, which rely on mixing different food groups, and then fermented foods, which are naturally processed. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
So I have a privilege to share about probiotic child growth and micronutrient status in developing countries. It's quite a large topic actually here, so I would like to emphasize on the study that we have done. So it might not represent the developing countries, but the principle actually the same. So I would like to present the study that we have done on this field. As we know that Indonesia and other developing countries raise double burden of disease and malnutrition, and we know that infection and malnutrition are actually one of the link between that actually causing this problem. And we know that this actually has not been that much progress, especially also accompanied with obesity. Yeah, so we see the trends of children and adolescents seems to be that in developing countries, showing in these figures high and reduced little bit, but still stagnant on a high level for undernutrition, but the obesity is increasing. That's actually increasing sharply in children and adolescents all over about the very study on 1975 until 2016. So in relation to Indonesia and also perhaps many other developing countries, apart from the stunting, wasting, and also overweight, obesity, we also face the problem of the micronutrient deficiency. We know that the zinc, the iron, vitamin A, perhaps also now zinc, are one of the important micronutrient deficiency, which doesn't really show the progress as what we see from stunting, for example. Of course, there should be a way how we can find a breakthrough from the biomedical perspective as well as the non-biomedical perspective. But here I will discuss more on the biomedical perspective in relation to the one of the intervention on the probiotics. Yeah. We know that very importantly, whatever we eat and consume actually become a signal. And this is also what the children consume. When they consume anything which is low quality or bad quality or high quality will influence the production of the what we call as the bioactive compound produced by the hidden metabolic organ is the gut microbiota, as well as the also the genomic involved in that gut microbiota. They produce the PS, they produce short-chain fatty acid, they produce the trimethylalanine, for example, depending on the intake they have. So it's also the same for the children and all the life course. And this will affect their gut, will affect their brain, they'll affect the other factors because of the gut-brain axis, gut-lung axis, you know, with coronavirus, and also all other organs importantly, which actually the entire essence of the growth. At the same time, it's also the production might also be accompanied by the increase of the absorption of certain micronutrient, which actually very important mechanism might actually explain later the role of gut microbiota to the growth, the micronutrient status, but also in general to the health by the immune modulation. So here I would like to firstly mention about when we talk about child growth, we talk about child micronutrient status, we could not apart from the maternal diet. So maternal and child diet and gut microbiota inflammation, which are actually hypothesized model, how actually the dendritic cell, for example, can cross the paracellular space of intestinal epithelium to take up bacteria directly to intestinal lumen. And this actually become one of the theory which transfer the good bacteria into the mother to the child. The circulation of the lymphocyte within the mucosal associated lymphoid tissue allow the maternal gastrointestinal tract microbiota to reach the distant mucosal surface, which is actually in the other organs and also even the lactating mammary gland and so on. So with this kind of hypothesis, we know that the gut microbiota programming from the maternal health will be very important. And this is actually showing the maturation of the gut, the colonization of gut microbiota, as well as the gut immunity and also immunity as the whole, actually provoked by the maternal diet, the infant feedings, breastfeeding, the exposure of the cesarean and non-cesarean, and of course later to the infant feedings and the psychosocial stimulation. So in related to the, and there's a lot of studies showing that the Bifidobacterium, the some of the lactobacillus or Bifidobacterium, very much linked to the overweight obesity. and also in this preschool children. This is what we did, actually, the study in East Jakarta, showing that the total bifidobacterium of those are actually obese tend to be much lower than those who are actually normal. That's also reflected by the same figures for the total bacterium for obese, overweight of pregnant mother. Seems to be consistent, although not very much as representative as for bifidobacterium. Maybe would be good if we can have bacterial composition, but it shows that the obesity also linked to certain decrement of certain good bacteria. So again, come back to the early life exposure. This is a very critical stimulus for the maturation of immune system, as I mentioned. And we know that the susceptibility of infection can be avoided by having a good microbes in early life. And the sensitization to environment antigen in early life also might accompany together with this kind of problem of infection. For example, what I mean here, early microbe will actually avoid or reduce the risk of infection, and infection we know very much linked to malnutrition. Okay, so gut bacteria in some studies show that protect against stunting. How is it done? Let me check, let me expose with some of our study. But before that, we know that there's alteration. So the impact because of the alteration of gut microbiome and the impact of on the vicious cycle of malnutrition. We know malnutrition cannot be alone, but it's really very much impacted by the impairment of the absorption and also the decrease of immune function, as well as the infection inflammation. So these three causes will be later be linked to the diet and host genotype to shape the potential impact of gut microbiota to malnutrition or growth, and later to the hidden hunger of micronutrient. Now I would like to talk about exactly on the evidence that we have on probiotics child growth and iron and zinc status. As mentioned by Professor Hardinsyah, the potential strategy of probiotics is one of the modulation of gut microbiota composition are very promising. Here we know that apart from the other intervention, this is one of the most interesting part which actually increase the potential of the diversity and health. And this is the most important of probiotics. It has to be living microorganism, and when it is administered in adequate amount, confer health benefit to the host. And this is very stand specific, so we cannot generalize one probiotics into another. Yeah. So how it actually works for the child growth? Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's linked very much to infection. So probiotics, few trials have focused on the role of probiotics, improvement of growth, and they found actually 4 different mechanisms that might explain the role of probiotics to growth. Reducing diarrhea, increasing absorption of nutrients, increased immunity, and growth hormone stimulation. This is one of our, sorry, maybe this is not very clear, but this is one of our just recent study on the review, which actually now is under review actually, but what we actually compile about 28 different studies in relation to probiotics to linear growth in children and adolescents. And we actually found the benefit of single strain probiotics or linear growth. So it means that most studies are using single strain. Further research, of course, need to investigate the benefit on the older children, because most of the study are done in younger children, but very little in older and adolescent. And we see from these 28 studies, the Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium probiotic strain are the most influential strain for growth. Yeah. Well, preparation of single strain are dominant, but there's some study on multi-strain and also symbiotic. So the study also varied in terms of duration of intervention for minimum of 3 months of intervention. So it means that studies on growth cannot be less than that. And characteristic setting are also different. So we found, in fact, only 5 studies shows the effect of probiotics on child linear growth. Yeah, so I'll skip this. So the compilation of probiotic weight gain on healthy children. Here we see some studies showing that in the healthy children, it shows that on the probiotic groups and the control group shows that the weight gain are actually not so much different in, so one of studies showing positive and some, but so still not very conclusive. It's also the same with, but a bit consistent on undernourished children. So in healthy children, the evidence are a bit different from the undernourished children. And undernourished children seems probiotics group weight gain better than the control. Yeah. So what happened with our study? So we included about almost 500 children aged 1 to 6 years. They're not breastfed and having a low calcium intake. And we published in pediatrics. And from 4,000 children, we screened and we actually assigned them into 4 different treatments: the low calcium milk, the regular milk calcium, the regular milk calcium with the additional of Lactobacillus casei 431, and regular milk calcium with Lactobacillus DSM 398, by 10 power to 8 cloning forming unit. And then we followed them about 6 months period. And what happened is that on the infection diarrhea, because this is the most manifestation of the growth actually, is actually one of the studies showing that the probiotics part, which is actually the Rotary DSM 17938, are quite promising, both in WHO defined diarrhea and in all reported diarrhea. They actually have less proportion of children, they have more proportion of children without diarrhea. And this is actually consistent for Rotary, a little bit more on the casei. It means that the group of probiotics seems better than the group without probiotics. So if you see the growth result here, see the change in weight and weight for IC score, but not much on height. So what we find, the modest effect of growth, about the effect size of 0.17 to 0.3 with velocity of 0.227 in children, which is much better than the meta-analysis of multi-micronutrient supplementation with the findings in the developing countries. So then we look at what happened with the growth, and all children seems to be growing normal, but those who are getting the Rotary and casei growing much faster, higher, and also gain more than the other group. And how about iron and zinc status? So we actually speculate those who are getting calcium will have decreased iron status, but with probiotics, we'll actually stabilize the condition, increase the absorption. But we do not find any positive results. So there's no change on any of these outcomes, no difference, what I mean, of the between those getting the probiotics and non-probiotics, also with zinc status. So this is actually need to be further studies to replicate, also to confirm the result. So in conclusion is that, sorry, before I did the conclusion, we also, so it means that in terms of the stunting, the probiotics seems to be reduced, especially in Rotary, but there's no difference between, it's about 10%, and in the other group it's about 5%, but the difference not very much significant. Maybe we need larger groups to look at the proportion change rather than the change in the continuous variable. So here we would like to mention that the conclusion less beneficial than the Rotary for the other factors like casei, but Rotary give increase the weight gain, no effect on severity of diarrhea for casei, but increased effect of the beneficial of Rotary for a severity of diarrhea, but not acute respiratory infection. There's no effect on iron and zinc status. Yeah. So far, I see that this is what we have here of these 4 different regimens. The incidence seems to be affected by the Rotary on incidence, which reduced the infection, and also reduced duration of diarrhea, no effect on severity or respiratory infection, and has the effect on growth in increasing weight gain and also weight for HZ score, but not much actually related to improvement of iron and zinc status. Again, I would like to thanks. The recommendation would say that probiotics is potential alternative strategy for the prevention of diarrhea, improvement of growth in children in developing countries. However, as in the previous one, in our review recently, there's still very small study and very little study. So it's too early to recommend probiotics for routine use for public health program, because we need to have those with more effect size for growth, for example, and iron and zinc status, no data on mortality, and the investigation need to be confirmed with similar setting in Southeast Asia region. I think that's all. Last but not least, I would like to thank all these people involved, Simeo, Wageningen University, NIZO, Prison Campina, and many other are actually involved in Unilever, and all actually expert involved, about 7 different institutions involved in this study. Thank you. I have other, but I know this is the time is not allow me to present more. So I would like to thank, and yeah, I would like to accept any questions. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So yeah, so once again, a very good morning to you all. And it is a pleasure to be talking to you from various parts of Asia. I would think, yes, it's a very good afternoon actually. But, you know, but because it's morning out here, I thought I'd probably start by talking about something that all of us feel is quite healthy, which is probiotics products, right? And so today I'm basically going to be focusing on some of my research that I have basically conducted, you know, in relation to consumer perception surrounding probiotics in the ASEAN region, right? So before, you know, I present my work, let me tell you a little bit about myself. You know, so I'm a health and risk communication scientist. And a lot of my work really focuses on the role of mobile and social media technologies in global health. You know, and then within that broad area, I study 2 types, you know, of information related problems really, right? So the first problem, you know, is that of misinformation, right? So that's basically more in the context of infectious disease outbreaks like COVID-19, Zika, Ebola, you know, so we all, I'm sure, keep getting all sorts of, you know, misleading forwards on WhatsApp, right? You know, so I study a lot of that. You know, but more pertinently to this presentation, I basically am quite interested in the problem of conflicting information, specifically in the context of nutrition. Yeah. So what exactly is conflicting, you know, nutrition information? Sorry. Right. So according to the literature, conflicting nutrition information really, you know, is defined as information about the same dietary behavior leading to 2 different contrasting outcomes, right? So I'm sure we've all seen in the news headlines saying that, kind of, you know, coffee causes cancer, you know, on 1 week, but about, kind of, you know, so about like, you know, a few weeks later, we see that coffee is good for you, right? And so studies, you know, in health communication and psychology have shown that, you know, that when consumers are exposed to conflicting, you know, a nutrition information, that can basically lead to 2 kinds, you know, of adverse cognitive outcomes, right? So the first cognitive outcome is nutrition confusion, which is really, you know, which is really defined as perceived ambiguity about nutrition recommendations and research, right? So people are really not sure about what to make, you know, when, you know, public health organizations or scientists tell them about, you know, specific nutrition recommendations. So that there is basically a lot of confusion. And the second adverse outcome is that of nutrition backlash, right? Which is basically, you know, negative beliefs about, you know, nutrition recommendations and research. So for instance, if a public health agency tells us to undertake some dietary behaviors, we'll just block them out and say, you know what, we just simply don't want to listen to you. All right. So, what you see on the screen is a typical example of conflicting nutrition information related to probiotics, right? So, in 2018, we basically see this New York Times article which says that probiotics may be good for your bones, right? And then about like a few months later, we see this article in the Wall Street Journal which says those probiotics may actually be hurting your gut health, right? So as a consumer, when I see both of these articles, I'm really confused, right? About, so should I consume probiotics? Are probiotics products, kind of good for my health, or should I just really stay away from them, right? And specifically in the context of probiotics, the conflicting nutrition information problem is a little bit more pronounced because of the reasons that you see on the screen, right? So of course, so there are basically, several factors that play in the probiotics world. So for instance, we do know that the probiotics industry is always trying to aggressively promote probiotics products through all forms of media, including social media, right? But at the same time, it's like, so much like, Dr. Ingrid was telling us a few minutes ago, that the scientific evidence surrounding the effectiveness of probiotics is still a little bit inconclusive, right? So there are studies coming from both sides of the debate, and as a result, there is a lot of unequivocal, equivocal evidence about probiotics, right? Okay, and then of course, when you look specifically at the European region, there are, multiple controversies surrounding the nutrition labeling, on probiotics products. And so that has really led to a lot of, issues with consumer trust, consumers not really knowing what to believe and what not, and so on and so forth, right? But despite all of these factors, right? So despite the uncertain evidence and despite the labeling controversies, the demand for probiotics continues to soar, right? So as an example, even my little, my little niece who lives in London, she loves her little bottle of Actimel when she goes to school every morning. So I really wanted to try and find out, why this happens, right? In spite of these controversies and the unclear evidence, what exactly drives consumer confidence in probiotics products, right? And so that is a question that I have really been trying to pursue over the past several months. And we have now collected data from nearly 8 countries around the world, which basically spans US, UK, Singapore, and most recently the ASEAN region, right? So we have covered a total sample size of close to about 4,500 consumers around the world, okay? And today, I'm going to be presenting to you some very, very preliminary findings from our surveys, of probiotics consumers in the ASEAN region, right? So as you all know, the ASEAN region, it comprises of 10 countries, spanning a population of close to about 660 million people, right? And so that of course, it cuts across, economically and culturally diverse regions, right? Countries, I'm sorry to say, right? And of course, the ASEAN region is also told to be among the top 3 markets for probiotics products, right? So it really, is a key driver for the probiotics industry, and it's also, of course, quite popular in our part of the world as well. So what we did was we basically conducted consumer surveys in the ASEAN region among 5 different countries, which is Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. And we surveyed a total of about 230 people, or consumers in each of these 5 countries, with like a total sample size of about 1,150, right? So we were really focusing on 20 to 40-year-old consumers, divided equally by gender. And we basically kind of pretty much administered a 50-item questionnaire, which basically took about close to 15 to 20 minutes for them to respond to, all right? So today, the kind of outcomes that I'm going to be presenting to you is just really, you know, the level to which consumers in the ASEAN region were just really aware of probiotics products. We'll then see the extent to which they have been exposed to or are actively seeking, information about probiotics products. We'll then see the extent to which the consumers in different ASEAN countries are exposed to conflicting information about probiotics, right? So that really is one of my key research questions. Which sources of information about probiotics do they trust more, right? And which stakeholder group, within the probiotics world, do consumers have the most confidence in, right? And last but not the least, speaking of confidence, to what extent are consumers in the ASEAN region either optimistic or pessimistic about probiotics products, right? Here are some really, really top-line preliminary findings, simply because we have just actually finished collecting data about like a week or two ago, right? So I'm just only going to be presenting to you descriptive statistics today, okay? But we will be carrying out a more inferential work once we finish processing the data, right? So when we basically asked consumers to identify what exactly probiotics products are, as you can see on the screen, an overwhelming majority of them correctly identified that probiotics products are really live microorganisms that, when given in adequate amounts, confer a benefit on the host. So that was great. But when we basically asked them, the amount of probiotic bacteria that should be consumed each day for optimum effect, right? So of course, that there is, we do know that there is a range from 10 to the power of 8 to 10 to the, to 10 to the power of 10. But I think, suppose if you sort of take the midpoint, which is, what my collaborator Cindy Au says as well, is sort of, a 10 to the power of 9 is sort of set to be the amount that basically confers the optimum effect. I just really like to draw your attention to the purple slices on the pie chart, right? Which really show that there is a lot of uncertainty among consumers about how much probiotics products to take, right? About, about the extent of probiotic bacteria, I mean, right? And that I think is quite critical, simply because we know that, a lot of food manufacturers actually tend to display that, in front of pack labels when it basically comes to probiotics products. And at least I've seen that, pretty much happen out here in the UK, right? And so we basically see, for example, that, that consumers in, Philippines and Vietnam probably gave the most accurate answer to this particular question, right? Okay, so when it comes to information exposure, right? We ask consumers, how often do you hear or read news stories about the health effects of probiotics products, right? And so our survey found that consumers in Vietnam, most frequently read or heard stories about health effects of probiotics, followed by the Philippines and Thailand, right? So again, I would like to focus here on the green pie, okay, which basically says, how closely do you follow news about probiotics products? And we again found that, that the consumers in Vietnam follow the news about probiotics products most closely, followed by Philippines and Thailand, right? So we are beginning to see a pattern here already in terms of, information seeking and information related behaviors. Okay, now talking about the fun stuff. So the conflicting information, right? So we asked participants, how often do you come across conflicting news about the health effects of probiotics products, right? And so here again, suppose if you can focus on the green sort of pie, we do see that, consumers in the Philippines most often encounter conflicting, information about probiotics products. It's like, pretty much followed quite closely by consumers in Malaysia and Vietnam as well. All right, okay, so let's keep going. We then ask consumers about the extent to which they trust different sources of information related to probiotics, right? So we do know that probiotics related information comes to us from a variety of sources, and then we basically wanted to ask consumers which of these do they trust most, really, right? And we found that that the consumers tended to either trust the government or the news media the most when it comes to probiotics, right? And quite surprisingly, we do find that that the trust in the scientific community, is actually the least when it comes to probiotics, right? And so suppose if you basically look from top to bottom, you will then see that the greatest trust in the government, government-based sources of information is, in Indonesia, and the lowest trust in the scientific community is, in the Philippines, right? So let's keep going forward. Okay. So we then basically asked consumers about their level of confidence in different stakeholders within the probiotics world, right? So it's like, just stakeholders who will give them the confidence that they can basically ensure the safety of probiotics products, and that they'll basically make evidence-based decisions. They will also basically pretty much disseminate, the most evidence-based information around probiotics products. And then similar to the last slide, we basically found that the trust in governmental sources was quite high, followed by food manufacturers, right? And then we basically also found that across the board, across the 5 different ASEAN countries, that the trust in retailers was the lowest, right? So we basically pretty much also found that the trust in the government was highest in Malaysia as well as in Indonesia, and the trust in the food manufacturers was highest in Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. Okay, and of course, last but not the least, talking about confidence in probiotics products, right? So we basically found that that across all the 5 ASEAN countries, consumers expressed a lot more optimism about probiotics products as opposed to pessimism. But if you look at the gap a bit closely, you will basically begin to see that that the gap is quite narrow when it comes to for example, the countries like Thailand and in Malaysia, right? Whereas the gap between optimism and pessimism, it's like, so when you look at the findings, it's like, pretty much below, Indonesia is quite wide. So people actually have a lot clearer perception, about probiotics products in some countries as opposed to others, right? So just really what exactly were some of the key findings from our survey so far, right? So much like I said, these are still very, very preliminary, and some of the patterns that we are basically beginning to see are this, right? Is that consumers know what probiotics products are, but their knowledge about what quantity is optimum is still relatively uncertain, right? So there is definitely a lot of interest among consumers in probiotics based on our analysis of information seeking and information exposure, right? Behaviors, but it's like, but having said that, we did see that that the trust in the scientific community is quite low across the board, in all 5 countries, and that was also quite reflected in the high levels of conflicting information that consumers are exposed to, right? so much like scientists, we basically also found that when it basically comes to stakeholders within the probiotics world, retailers were actually the least trusted stakeholders, and then last but not the least, we basically found that there's a lot more optimism as opposed to pessimism about probiotics products, right? So to just really sum it up, right, what exactly are some of the key, policy and practice implications of some of these findings, is the fact that, there is definitely a need for scientists, and for members of the scientific community to just really engage with communities more and more using, specific forms of scientific and public engagement, right? So there is definitely a lot of push for that, in the UK. And I think, it would just really be quite nice to see, more and more of that happening in the ASEAN region as well, and an integral part of this, of scientists just, it's like pretty much working with communities is to just really try to sensitize consumers about the fact that, that conflicting evidence is natural to science, right? So for those of us in the scientific community to just really come across, contradictory scientific findings is quite common, okay? But I think for the general public, that basically comes across as, scientists are saying one thing one day and something totally different the other day, right? And then so of course, so we also basically found that, that there is a need to devise more targeted communication strategies based on, the informational behaviors and, preferences of consumers in different countries, and last but not the least, there is a need for greater intersectoral collaboration so that it's like, so that consumers can just really make more informed choices about consuming probiotics products, right? So that just really, brings me to the end, of my presentation. I must tell you that, we have also captured several other variables, it's like, such as probiotics consumption, trust in nutrition labels and so on and so forth, which are not part of this presentation, but once we finish analyzing the data, once we publish it, we will be more than happy to share it with you, right? I would definitely like to acknowledge Cindy Au, my collaborator from DuPont Nutrition as Health, right? I mean, as well as Dr. Hardin as well, and the study was just really funded by a research grant from Pergizi Pangan, in Indonesian, so thank you for supporting the study. And if anyone wishes to get in touch with me for potential, research collaborations or any questions related to the study, they can definitely shoot me an email and I'd be more than glad to have a conversation. All right, so thank you very much.
So why I said good bacteria? Because in Indonesia, regulation, to have a claim of probiotics is a little bit difficult because need to prove to show the study proven that good bacteria is as a probiotic according to WHO and Codex regulation. So in standard, I mean. So there is not yet product containing good bacteria in Indonesia have a claim of probiotic. So I use in the study on good bacteria. Actually, in the label, it's not also mentioned about good bacteria, but bacteria culture. That is the terminology used by the several companies or food industries that the product of containing good bacteria available in Indonesia, because the way to sell it is through the cold chain system. So mostly in the urbanized area, yeah. That's why in this study, it is reflect of the product contain good bacteria available in the urban area. But the study on the using the Google form, it is from the west to the eastern part of the Indonesia. So this is about my presentation. about the background, methods, knowledge and practice on the good bacteria, and about the commercial product that I selected from the Jakarta and Bogor market. For you who doesn't know about Bogor, Bogor is about 60 kilometers, 1 hour drive to the southern part of Jakarta. And then what about the trend in the global market? It is the review of the literature based on the international or global market survey by the global survey agencies, and then the conclusion. So one study by Scott Dixon et al. Just published the beginning of this year, entitled Nutrition, Fitness and Health. They asked about the what are the biggest nutrition challenge for you? It is based on the survey, online survey also, and based on that survey, Scott Dixon classified. There are I try to focus on the 5 largest answer. First, the biggest challenge is about emotional stress eating. The second is lack of planning on eating, and then about craving and snacking when not hungry and eating quickly. This is the 5 largest challenge for the people when answering through the online survey. And this reflects that there is a problem of the people in how to get a quality food and a quality snack. And based on also the study by wellness, the continuing study that I mentioned before, the Dixon et al. And what is the wellness component as a perspective of the consumer? So there are 6 components of the wellness according to the this respondent of the survey. First, if we can control stress and we can have a healthy diet, if we can do exercise properly, if we can listen, play music and entertain, and we have a good sleep, and if we care to the others, a sense of community. So this is the 5 component of a wellness according to this study. So the second one is about the healthy diet. So the healthy diet include as part of the healthy component based on the public. Even by the theory, it is already included. Diet should be part of the wellness, but this study to confirm what is the perception of the people outside the science expert. And based on the megatrends 2030 of the European Union study toward food 2030, it can be seen here in terms of food processing. The last part, you can see that one of the megatrend toward 2030 is about the functional food, include probiotic and prebiotics. So based on this megatrend, it seems that in the near future, the market of probiotic and prebiotic will be increased significantly. And in the right side, in terms of the consumer trend, what is the majority trend toward 2030? It can be seen also in the first line. Health and food consciousness is put as the first point of the consumer trend. So if we combine on food processing and consumer trends, the more likely also that probiotic, prebiotic, and healthy choice will be a trend, a big trend for the near future. Also about the fast and convenient food, and also about free from something in the product, like free from cholesterol, free from sugar, etc. And the study, global survey by Mental. Mental is a global company that every year, sometimes every season, conducting study, and the beginning of this year, Mintel had a survey, a global survey, asking about what is the top claims in the product. It's not only about the top claim, also asking about what claims tend to be declined now and the future. So the declining claim about the functional eye health, but as the rule of the carrot that can be better for the health of the eyes, for instance, yeah, and low cholesterol, reduced calorie, vegetarian, it is the claim about that will be lower. And what is the top among the several clients in this graph in the left side? The first one is probiotic. You can see here the top one among the bar in the left side. It is a probiotic. The second one, digestive health, and the third one, halal. You know, the digestive health also can be because of the probiotic combination of the other kind of dietary component include prebiotic. And if we see the market of the probiotics, in terms of the market is based on probiotic, the word, not good bacteria. But in the study later on, I use the word good bacteria or bacteria culture. It can be seen here, Southeast Asia, include Australia, and also in the South Asia and East Asia with the green color. Since 2018, there is a high market demand there of the probiotic. It is more than 6% annual growth every year. And totally in the global market, especially for yogurt, the probiotic enriched into yogurt, it is about $23 billion. Yeah? And the trend will be higher and higher, was estimated. And what is the objective of the study that I just said it is a small scale study? Why I say small scale? Yeah, because it is through the online only within Indonesia. And thank you for Santosh that already present about comparing several Asian countries knowledge and also perception on the probiotic. So the first one, I would like to know the knowledge on the good bacteria of the respondent, and what also about the belief on the good bacteria, on the benefit of the good bacteria by the respondent, and then the characteristic of commercial food product and research bacteria culture in Jakarta and Bogor. This is the second objective is through the market product study, and the third one it is through the Googling based on the global survey study. So this is the method, yeah, through using the Google form. We got 2,644 subjects during the third week of July. It is in the mid of the pandemic in Indonesia about 4 months ago. And about the product market survey, yeah, I collected the 24 commercial food product containing bacteria culture from 3 supermarkets in Jakarta and Bogor at the second week of July this year, but not include infant food, because if I include infant food, yeah, can be more than 20. Yeah? So I focus this on not on for the infant food product, but it is for the teenage and adult commercial food product that contain bacteria bacterial culture inside. So here the result about the Google form survey. Yeah, according to the age group, most of the group is between 20 to 40 years old, called millennial, and there are also about 11% of the respondent is the Z generation, 15 to 20 years old, and about 20% more than 40 years old. And this is the percentage of subject by knowledge and practice of bacteria culture. Yeah, I think as also in the previous study on probiotic done by Dr. Santosh, more than 95% Indonesia know about the probiotic. Here I'm asking about bacteria culture, more than almost 100%, yeah, 98% they know about the bacteria culture. And also close to the figure what Santosh revealed, that 96% knowing about probiotic. And when asking about bacteria culture, not always probiotic, yeah, about 50% of them also understand not all bacteria culture is not always probiotic. Consume bacteria culture during last month. When I'm asking, did you consume during the last month any kind of bacteria culture? And 61%. And I heard from the Association of the Food and Beverage Association of Indonesia that during the pandemic, the consumption of the yogurt, the consumption of milk is increasing. Also the consumption of fruit. So it seems it is also in line with the general perception. And then consuming bacteria culture as a beverage. Most of the bacteria culture that I saw in the market, it is as a beverage, especially using the main ingredient is milk. Yeah, and then consuming as a supplement is only 30%, and by the others 7%. So mostly as a beverage, especially with the milk-based beverage. And this is the percentage of subject believe the potential benefit of bacteria culture. So the respondent 98% believe because of there is a good bacterial culture there, so will be result in to make it balance the microbiota in the gut. So also it's better for the digestive health, more than 90%, and about 90% also believe it is better for immunity, and about 60% believe could control body fat and cholesterol. And this is the second study based on the market product study. We selected 24 commercial food products with bacterial culture. The type of packaging, there are various type of packaging. There are small cup which consists of about 25 to 40 milliliter or grams, 30%, and mostly the small cup. And then the cup on the 8%, the double cup, so approximately 80 gram or milliliter combined as a double, so twice of the 40, so about 80 milliliter, and double, it is mean double cup. And there's also a small bottle, yeah. And also there is a bottle, the small bottle is about 60 millimeters. The bottle is about 120. There is also 200 milli. It depends on. There is also on the carton or Tetra Pak. So mostly in the bottle, it is medium bottle and small cup. In the pack size, mostly in the more than 100 milli pack size. How many strain of the bacterial culture inside? Yeah, mostly 2 and 3. There are 1, but mostly 2 and 3 bacterial strain of bacterial culture inside. What is the name of the bacterial culture that we compile from the label of the product? So the 3 common one is Streptococcus thermophilus, Lactobacillus bulgaricus, and Lactobacillus aedesophilus. It is the most common. How many percentage with the 2 strain? 50%. If 3 strain, 25%. And in the label also, we go detail any other claim in the label. This is the 24 product. There is the third product, have a claim low fat, high calcium, source of dietary fiber. It combined with the prebiotic. Product number 4 also, product number 5. So mostly there is no claim of probiotic because it is regulated, should be proven with the clinical study. But most of the product promote about dietary fiber inside. So this is the trend. The trend currently, based on the review that I did, is combination of prebiotic and probiotic. What about the price? So the mean price per 100 gram or milli, it is about 0.90 cent. This is about 12,000 rupiah. The total of global, a trend of global probiotics market, another half minute, Dr. Siti. It seems that the liquid one is more of favorite than dry one. And also the high annual growth of probiotic demand in Asia Pacific. It can be seen here that the growth 7.5% in the Asia Pacific toward 24, the next 4 years. And it can be seen here also from the this global study that the growth is getting higher. And if we try to combine about the region, yeah, Northern America, Europe, Asia Pacific, again, Asia Pacific is the future market of the probiotic. So that is the, in terms of the packaging, it can be seen here. So using the cup and bottle is more popular and blister, but using the others is not so much popular. So that's my presentation. I would like to end this presentation to conclude that the knowledge and practice of the respondent in Indonesia on good bacteria culture seems to be a good, yeah, more than 90% understand and practice during the last month. Thank you very much